Welcome to the I Work For Him podcast. I'm Michael Miracle, producer of the I Work For Him radio program, the voice of the faith and work movement. Our mission is to transform the workplace of every Christian into a mission field. What does that look like in your workplace? Let's find out right now.
Hey, welcome to I Work For Him, the mouthpiece of the faith and work movement. We're your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg.
Friends, thanks so much for being with us today. I'm so excited for our show ahead. I just want to remind you that you can follow us on all the social media channels. It's a great way to stay connected, know what we have going on, both the things that are structured, like when our new podcasts come out, but also things spontaneous that happen along the way. We'd love for you to connect with us there. So just look for I Work For Him. I work the number 4, him.
And I want to remind people to check out the Awaken Podcast Network, awakenpodcastnetwork.com, where you'll find 125 voices out there, all different podcasts, encouraging you to live out your faith in your work, awakenpodcastnetwork.com. You know, fame, it's attractive, sometimes even mesmerizing. So many of us have had at least one moment in our life that we thought being famous would be awesome. But as a Christ follower, fame takes on a different meaning. You may be famous, but it's no longer about you, it's about Jesus. How do you use your fame for His glory and His honor? And what happens when your fame starts to fade or an illness takes you out of the limelight? How you react to your circumstances is being watched by everybody. Then fame may not be all that you were hoping for. Today we walk alongside and talk alongside with singer, songwriter, artist, and comedian Kelly Lang. KellyLang.net. She's sung alongside some of the greatest singers of our time, performed in front of huge audiences, and has been on many TV shows, and she's got a story to tell about when her fame and her career were threatened by cancer. Walk with us as we talk with Kelly Lang about her story. Kelly Lang, welcome to I Work For Him.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me today. What an honor.
We're excited. Kelly, we always start off with all of our new guests with this question. At what point in time in your life did you come to the intersection of deciding to be a Jesus follower?
I was always one to go to Sunday school. I always loved that, the whole scene of church. And at 12 years old, I became a Christ follower, and I gladly gave my life to Him and have not looked back since.
That's so good. So tell us a little of your story, how you got to, I don't know how deep we want to go to begin with, but maybe just kind of lay it up as far as your life and how you got to where you did in your career.
That's a loaded question.
I know, right?
and how cancer intersected all of that.
Okay, so you want me to just talk? Huh?
Just go. We're going to let you talk. This section of the show, we'll let you just talk. Yeah.
Okay. No, I became a Christ follower at 12, and I was always involved with youth groups and things at church, and was always singing around church. And I began singing on local TV shows in Nashville. Let me back up a little bit, though. I was born in Oklahoma. My dad was Conway Twitty's road manager. And when Conway decided to bring all of his organization over to Nashville, I was one of that convoy. And we landed in Hendersonville. And I began singing around Hendersonville and a lot of churches and a lot of nursing home things, and just to kind of get, my feet wet. And a lot of things in church really led me to having confidence and I don't know, it was just a very sweet childhood, just a really sweet time. And went on to do Star Search with Ed McMahon. Mm-hmm. And that afforded me more national television things like on the Nashville Network, and traveling around and meeting a lot of people and being, involved with country music through Conway anyway. I had many opportunities to do opening acts as an opening act for every country artist known to man. And that's how I met my future husband. So this is a very small world we live in.
So, I as I was reading some of your story online and things were going great. And all of a sudden one day, breast cancer intersected your life and things came to a halt. Talk to us about that.
I was 36 years old, and I was a single mother of 2 little girls. And I was actually just signed to a new record label, and I was so excited. They were taking my music very seriously, and I was singing in Switzerland. And at the airport, I felt this kind of a hard, painful feeling under my arm, and I thought, that's weird. I even dropped my bag. And I'd had an ultrasound in that area before, but they said, nah, it's nothing. You're too young, whatever. So when I came home from Switzerland, they said, I told the doctor, I said, I'd really like to get a diagnostic mammogram and an ultrasound just to see what this is, if it's grown, if it's changed any. And they couldn't find it in a mammogram. They could not find it in any type of ultrasound. I just knew. It was like a gut instinct that God gives us that I knew something wasn't right. So I asked the technician if I could show her, pressing her own ultrasound wand a little closer in, what I was feeling. And at that moment, the radiologist came in and he said, we may have a problem here. So we need to get you to a doctor to do a biopsy on this. So they did, and it had already spread to lymph nodes. And all I can say is I don't look good, bald, and green, because that was my reality for the next year. I had 37 weeks of radiation, and I had a lot of chemo. I don't remember how much chemo I had, but it was a challenging time I was mad because I had to give up what I was really excited about doing, is performing and getting on the road and doing things that came natural to me. And this was just like, at the time, it was just, I tell people it was like a death sentence handed to you. But the doctor told me he could tell who would survive this by their attitude. So I decided to switch my attitude and give God all the glory in good things and in bad. And I looked at it as my life sentence. Like it was my opportunity to look at things more appreciatively and more, I don't know, the grass was greener and the sky was bluer. Just the thought of not being able to see things we take for granted every day really was prominent to me, that I might not have even noticed if I had not had that diagnosis.
So you were able to then take that experience and really use it to speak into other women that were going through that experience. How has God given you that a new platform?
You know, Martha, at the time, I was just trying to survive. I didn't want people to know how sick I was. I was just doing whatever you could to live, and had a lot of lovely prayer warriors that came to my guide and helped me. And I wasn't thinking about being an inspiration to anyone else. I had my head down just trying to get through this. In hindsight, I wish that I had someone like myself had looked, up to, I guess. I didn't have any lights at the end of this tunnel for me. It was very, very dark. And I promised to God, I remember specifically, I prayed to him. I said, if you can help me get through this, I will be that light for someone else. That is my goal. And that's what I have chills even thinking about this. It is my main purpose in life. And in reading some questions that you guys had forwarded me earlier, at one point, I will admit, my goal to be in the limelight or have fame or whatever was different than it is now. Now the music to me is just a portal to opening me up to a bigger channel of people that might hear my story that can feel some type of light or inspiration from that. Because the breast cancer, although I thought that was a sidetrack, ends up being the highlight of my life, because there's so many people now that we have the ability to reach out on social media that tell me, which I wouldn't have known otherwise, they tell me, watching you go through that like a warrior, watching you go through that with a smile on your face, gave them hope. So isn't that all we're here for, is to help others through our tragedies?
Absolutely. And God uses that adversity in your life to change you from who you were to who he can use more effectively. And he never wastes a story. He always uses those stories of adversity in our life to encourage other people. Hey, we're talking today with Kelly Lang. I really want to encourage you to check her out online, kellylang.net. Out there, you're going to hear some of her songs. You're going to be able to have the ability to buy some of her songs, but you also have the link to her YouTube channel where you can hear a lot of her story and some great videos where she's been on other people's TV shows and things like that. To tweet or not to tweet, that's always on my mind. That's why Martha handles most of the Twitter tweets and interactions. Please look for us and interact with us on Twitter at I Work For Him Radio. That's at I Work, the number 4, Him Radio. Kelly, let's talk real life. One of your songs that you wrote a lot of years ago was recently, I don't want to say resurrected, but brought back into the limelight to be part of a hospital commercial. I'm Not Going Anywhere is the song. What's the history of that song?
Well, I was witnessing a friend of mine taking care of her husband, and he was getting ready to pass. And he was scared. Although he had a lot of hospice workers around him, she was really giving him a lot of her heart and soul, and as she should. But I noticed that nobody was really watching over her. But I was watching her as to how she was behaving, because that would be really hard for me to go through. And she kept saying, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here. And I was so blown away by her ability to be so strong for him. So I wrote this song originally just as an instrumental, and TG encouraged me to put music or words to the music. And lo and behold, everything I write seems to come true to fruition at some point. 3 or 4 months later, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and full circle moment. If you don't mind me indulging in the story, I didn't let anybody see me without at least makeup on or a head scarf or something when I was going through breast cancer. And one day, TG let himself into my condo. We never lived together before we were married, but he did have a key. And at that time, he didn't know, but I had never let anybody see me cry either. I was trying to be strong for my daughters. They were 9 and 13. And so at that moment, I had just looked into the mirror after getting out of the shower, and I just saw myself green and bald and scarred up. And I just started wailing, just an ugly cry. And next thing I know, TG lets himself in, and I'm just mortified because he's seeing me, no hair, no makeup, no eyebrows or lashes. And I just was like, I was in a white terry cloth robe, and he pulled me down on his lap in my closet floor. And I was just inconsolable. And he kept telling me, "Honey, I love you. I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life." And at the time, honestly, we had just been dating for a few years. So that was his cue to go in my book. I kept going, "No, you don't need to be living like this. And I might not make this." And he says, "Well, I'm not leaving." So it speaks volumes of him as a man, because a lot of men, a lot of partners, I should say, just choose to leave when the times get tough. And it's a beautiful story. It's a love story that I'm just really proud of how far we've come together.
That's so good. So this song that you wrote out of a time when you were witnessing what a friend was going through, now a hospital is using that as their campaign. Tell us what that's like.
2 years later, Ascension Hospitals came to our home to film my success story, I should say. And they asked me, they said, "Do you have a song that would be something you wrote that would be something people could relate to?" And I thought, I don't even like to share people playing my guitar, because I know I'm not that great on it, but I played a little bit of that. Never thought a thing about it. It just was like a happenstance. And a few years go by, and I hear that they're going to be using it in a Nashville commercial. And it became so successful in the Nashville area and the funny story, sideline, at the end of the commercial, there's a teeny tiny little byline of singer-songwriter Kelly Lang saying this, tiny little writing. But that was so funny because my ego wanted it to be bigger. But the beautiful thing is that people had to search it out as to who was singing it, and they had to Shazam me. I don't know if y'all have ever done that, but you can say, "Hey Siri, who's singing this?" and she'll tell you. I'm on the Shazam charts now because nobody knew who was singing it. So.
Shazam! Okay, wow.
Yeah, it's different than being Googled. It's quite funny. But anyway, it's a who knew? For any songwriter or creative person out there that might think they should give up on something that they created, don't give up, because God wouldn't have given that inspiration to you if not for some reason it's in the future. So I'm excited to be part of that.
We're talking today with Kelly Lang. Check her out online, kellylang.net, kellylang.net, and the name of the song, "I'm Not Going Anywhere." What a great song to download, especially if you're going through one of these. 500,000 families have been impacted by COVID deaths in the United States of America. That's what the statistics say. There's a lot of people that had to sit by their sides as they watch their loved ones die. And honestly, they had to do it alone. And this is a song where the world's changed in the last year. Kelly, your song means so much to people that I'm going to stick by you even when things are tough. And that's what marriage is about. And TG was showing his commitment to you even before you got married. And sometimes there are tough times. But it's a tough one.
If I had my way on every I Worked for Him road trip, I'd spend all my time in the passenger seat on Facebook and Instagram. But Jim insists that I drive for at least an hour every day so he can nap. Perhaps you'd like to stay connected with all that Jim and I Work for Him are up to. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram for all the latest and special events, podcasts, and conversations. Just search for I Work for Him. That's I Work 4 Him.
So, you perform with all kinds of famous people. You've been on TV. I mean, I grew up in Minnesota, so sorry, I'm not a big country western fan because polka was big, in Minnesota. That was
it really?
That was a joke, Kelly. Okay, seriously. All right, how do you keep, even today, you've sung with amazing people who from all around the world. How do you keep the fame from impacting what's going on in your head?
Well, I was really fortunate to have been raised around the music industry, and I saw a lot of people that did let it go to their heads, and I didn't want to be like them. And I was fortunate that my dad and both of my parents, being that they were around Conway all the time, Dad saw some. It's just ridiculous, the arrogance and attitudes of certain people, and he just said, "You will not be like that. You treat everybody the same. You are no better than anybody else." And I think it really, really stuck to me because it is way more important for somebody to tell me that they thought I was a nice person than they loved my latest song. That doesn't hold me, and when somebody leaves your presence and they tell you that they've been inspired or they've learned something from you, or that really means something more to me. And like I said, the music's just a portal.
What a wonderful portal, because it does really speak to a lot of people's souls. And the fact that God's allowed you to put words onto paper and to express yourself and have that kind of impact on other people is really amazing. But we know that you as a person need to have a private life and be able to grow in your own faith. How are you able to do that in the midst of all of the many things that you've been involved in your life?
Well, it never leaves me. It's who I am. It's the essence of my core is my belief in Christ. If I didn't have him to center me and to ground me and to speak to, he's my friend. Like if you didn't have your very best friend to speak to, I can't imagine specifically going through COVID without him, but just day-to-day things. I can't imagine not having a one-on-one relationship with him. Do I have the opportunity to go to church as much as I would like? No, I don't. Do I have the opportunity to be in Sunday school or whatever Bible studies as much as I'd like? No, I don't. But the fact is, he's everywhere. He's everywhere. He's within me. He's within our home. And I just think that that's priority over fame or music industry in my life. Can't speak for anybody else, but that's the only way that it works properly for us.
I love the fact that your dad said, don't be like some of those other people. Because I've been around famous musicians who treat their band people not great, or their roadies that have to move all the equipment. I mean, a singer is nobody on the stage without a sound guy, without the guys that do the wiring, without the people that play in the band, without the backup singers, without the people that clean the music hall before they come. I mean, it takes a team, and everybody's got a role to play. And I love the fact that you see that. So as you look at your career going forward, how do you see that expanding as a mission field? Now you've been made famous by a hospital chain in 22 states, so people are going to be looking up kellylang.net, kellylang.net. They're all over the place. You've got an opportunity for an even bigger platform today than ever. How do you plan on using that as a mission field to actually get people to hear your story?
Well, just sitting here talking with you, we plan on doing a chain of events that will lead people towards our story, and lots of podcasts that I have lined up in the future. And, aren't we lucky that we have this ability to do this through Zoom, that we can have something that will stick with us and you can share. And we didn't have that many years ago. It's grown so much. But it's like I said, it's the essence of my life. Along with that, I happen to sing, I happen to paint, I happen to be a comedian. And it's really funny because I never know how somebody would know me or remember me because it's all through different avenues. But God must know I can take on all these silly little roles because it's really funny because I have to compartmentalize them. If I'm in a mood to paint, I can't sing. If I'm in the mood to sing, I can't write. If I'm in the mood to write, I can't, I have to like really be single-minded when I'm doing them. And there's a lot of prayer goes into what I do. When I sit down to write, I pray for God's inspiration. And a lot of times I'll just wake up in the middle of the night and something's really like a song just yesterday that I was writing with my friend. I'm writing a life sentence, so what we just spoke about, not being a death sentence, but a life sentence. And words came to me really quickly the other morning. And I had to get up out of bed and find my phone, to be able to put them down. God's not done with me yet. So I have lots of things I still have to do. And I just feel that sharing his word is the priority for all of us. And a question that you had asked earlier prior to our speaking was really interesting, and it was talking about. Let me find it really quickly. Oh, how do you have the time? I always have the time because it's just that's the priority. I guess that's the point that I'm trying to make. It never changes for me. My days are all the same, and I happen to sing.
So one last thing I just want to ask you. I am sure that we have a lot of listeners right now that they're aspiring at something, whether it's in entertainment or using some other gift that God has given them, but they're worried about, being in an industry where they would maybe need to compromise their values or their faith, in order to be successful. What can you say to them to help them to, set some good standards and know that they don't have to compromise?
Well, the one thing that I had to really come to the forefront with is a lot of people, when I first started out, felt that I should start doing gospel music. And I do sing some Christ music, some gospel music, some inspirational things. But my line of work led me to be more secular. And I would sing in places that wouldn't necessarily be church-oriented in any way. Like I would sing at a club, or I would sing at a event that, a bar area or whatever it might happen to be in. My thought was I could possibly be the only Christian that somebody would meet in one of those areas. And as Christ followers, our light shines a little brighter than somebody without Christ.
Right.
And I am now a witness to that. When I walked into a place here, somebody saw something different in me. And I happened to speak something over them that really affected their life. And they would not have known Christ other than in this conversation. Mm-hmm. If I had not been there, and if I'd only just stuck to singing in a Christian place, I wouldn't have had an effect on this person. And I look at those as I'm very strong in knowing what I am. Nothing can really bobble me in any way. If I go into a bar, I'm still the same person, and I just think that I'm just me, And so, in order to give somebody advice on that, you have to get really clear with who you are and what your relationship with God is before, so nobody can bobble you. This career is so fleeting; it means nothing without God. It means absolutely nothing. So you have to get centered with Him before you achieve any type of success that you won't be tilted off that.
Those are great words. Kelly Lang, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for sharing your song with millions. And thank you so much for being here on I Work for Him today.
My pleasure. What a thrill. Thank you guys for having me.
You bet. You've been listening to I Work for Him with your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg. We're Christ followers. Our workplace, it's our mission field. But ultimately, I work for Him.
Thank you for listening to the I Work For Him podcast with your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg. Please visit iworkforhim.com to learn more about connecting your faith and work, to join the I Work For Him Nation, or subscribe to our weekly blog. You can also follow us on social media at I Work For Him to stay up to date and meet our guests. If today's message spoke to you, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast platform. Your review will launch more workplace missionaries across America. That's at I Work For Him and online, iworkforhim.com. I work the number 4 him.com.